Alrighty, hello everybody. How's it going? So there's one here that I know was probably going to be inevitable, so I figured I'd go ahead and nip it in the bud here. There's always people going up with these tier lists and, asking everybody to go check on their Wi-Fi's and name the best ones and whatever else. But you know what? Internet's doing just fine, so let's just do the top 42 relationships of the series and, well, how those pan out. So, in no particular order, I think we'll go ahead and start off with an A tier here. We've got our Eleanor and Alphonse here. Pretty much solid couple right off the get-go. I mean, they're both coming off of pretty dire situations. One's shipwrecked, one's abused, and eventually they both discover they've got superpowers, so it's pretty fantastic. Not to mention they get a pretty good ending. Kind of feel like we should probably put them in B for the B ending, so we can, actually, yeah, we'll put them in B for the B ending. It is, however, that said, it is definitely the better ending, so we'll put them back up to A for that. Alright, next up on the list, we have the relationship between heart medication and the death chicken from OP64. So we can definitely go ahead and put that one in S tier. Basically, the first time anyone runs into a cockatrice, more than likely they're going to lose a few squads just by having them turn into friggin' statues. So yeah, I feel like that's probably one of the stronger relationships in the series. I'm sure they must have boosted their stock price quite a bit. So we'll go ahead and leave that right there. Next up, we have a nice teacher-student relationship over here with Eleanor and Margaret, who unfortunately end up having to try to kill one another. Solid relationship there. She can kill her teacher, take her move, take her sword, basically take her job eventually, and even get promoted for it. So I feel like they're probably going to be one of the better relationships. They do at least get some exposition. That said, they really only get that exposition for a grand total of one cutscene, but hey, it's there. Alright, next up, we have the relationship between Barevra and the guy that ends up stealing the spear from her. So unfortunately, nobody knows what the guy looks like. He's just kind of missing in action there, so he just kind of runs off with her spear. She does basically sacrifice her entire race at the time to go be with this guy, and he just kind of bails, so I feel like we gotta put that one in D. I mean, they at least tried. They sort of got together for a little while. Everything seemed to be going alright. And, well, unfortunately, in the end, it didn't quite work out. Alright. Next up, we have the relationship between the Ogre Battle description writers and whoever was writing the wiki, who, for whatever reason, we're going to put this down in E tier. For whatever reason, they don't believe there is a relation between the four cardinal directions and the direction of north existing. There are two wind god weapons. I'm not sure what's up with that. Either way, we just gotta go ahead and put that over there. Alright, next up in terms of absolute S-tier relationships, we have Ronnie and... not Ronnie, I apologize. We have Norn and Debonair. Which, get you a relationship of somebody that's willing to go to war for you. As soon as she finds out that he's missing, she raises an army and she's off to kill you. So yeah, you spare her life, you get him as a result. They're a nice power couple that even continue being a power couple in the sequel. They can basically redo the entire thing again if you really want them to. And speaking of S-tier relationships with Debonair, we gotta talk about the relationship of Debonair and his hair conditioner. Now, personally, I feel like he probably uses hair conditioner back when uses horse conditioner, I should say. Back when I had long hair, I remember I used to absolutely love using that stuff, but yeah, this guy takes care of his locks. Alright, now, in terms of potentially F-tier relationships, we gotta talk about Prince Agers and his relationship with himself. Because the guy, unfortunately, abuses the hell out of himself throughout the entirety of March of the Black Queen, repeatedly cloning himself until he's basically a beaten-up, bloody mess by the end of it. And every time you run into him, his sprite work just shows he's suffering. The guy's not having a good time. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's an F tier. However, kind of hanging out around the C tier here, we've got Richter and his not quite, well... It was supposed to be his bride-to-be, as I understand, the Duchess. But unfortunately, they were friends as kids, they were growing up. It all kind of got a little bit tragic because she kept repeatedly getting sick, so it didn't really end up going anywhere. If I understand the implication correctly, that's why he takes the MacGuffin of the game and just basically chucks it in a crypt, because he's a little bit of a sick of the memory, so... Plus side, it allows the plot to happen. Downside, though, unfortunately, they don't quite get to go very far with that particular relationship, so... gets to go there. Alright, next up, we got another feel like it's an S tier relationship. Well, actually, no. They're going to be an A. And that would be the one between Canopus and his sister Yuria. It's not really, a romantic relationship. It's a sibling relationship. But yeah, they have each other's backs through 2 separate games. Basically, Yuria's always following him around, trying to make sure he's all right. He's always running around, basically single-handedly winning wars. It's, what else are pigeon people going to do? They're making the most of their situation. They know that everyone's going to want to recruit them for their awesome stats. Granted, he starts off pretty modest back in March of the Black Queen, but he can become pretty good, so we have that over there. And next up, we've got the unfortunate relationship over here in B tier. Actually, I feel like this is probably almost... okay. Just due to how people seem to respond to it, we're going to go ahead and leave the relationship between Denim and Olivia in the B tier here. So, unfortunately, the only time that you ever actually see them in a cutscene together, he's trying to choke her out. So that's not a particularly good start right off the bat. They are implied to be childhood friends. They are implied, or at least Olivia's implied to be pursuing him towards the credits there. We never really get to see anything come of it. We do get some official confirmation that they're banging on a boat in the credits, though, so I guess that's at least something in their favor. Apparently, Olivia did succeed in her pursuits there, so there's that. Figured in the picture here, she probably needs a little bit of revenge on him for choking her out in that one cutscene. It's kind of a bad first impression, I gotta say. Dude shows up, kills all your dudes, tries to strangle you. Oh yeah, guess what? We're old friends. Could be better, but we'll go ahead and leave that there. Now, in terms of solid A-tier working relationships, though, we got to talk about Catalio and Winoa. I mean, she's there ready to completely lay down her entire order to let this guy get a little bit of healing. If she gets killed off, he will turn around and he will completely wreck your entire team more than likely. You really have to be ready to actually take this guy on, and yeah, he will absolutely just own your entire party if you try to mess with his colleague here. Now that said, I kind of feel like he would probably get along even better with Walter White here. They are both the danger after all, so we have to at least put them up there in the S tier. I feel like they'd probably be a pretty solid group. I mean, if there was a group in Valeria that he'd get along with, I feel like he'd probably support the whole undead thing. They do seem to be doing pretty well as far as having potential labor availability and resource availability, while not really questioning the morals of it too much. Maybe he'd switch over to the Bakram. It's unclear, but I feel like those two would probably get along just fine. Alright, next up in terms of F-tier relationships, gotta talk about Lenar and Aracel. She really tries her best to put up with his crap, but the guy is a war criminal, so that's gonna put them off to a bad start. He keeps misleading her. So they're in the F tier, I'm afraid. They don't quite make it. I mean, they might have a chance to blossom it out a little bit later. Unfortunately, she does kind of shoot him. You do as you do. Okay. From there, we got to talk about the very questionable relationship between Elric and Euphrey in Knight of Lotus. See, the thing is, this is kind of a weird multi-directional type situation. So Elric's wife died, Euphrey's mom here, and for some reason this absolute 1,000 IQ genius decides to try and convert his daughter into his wife. So many potential weird things going wrong here. Long story short, she winds up possessed, he ends up running away, and eventually you end up sorting out the whole situation by almost killing both of them. So I guess they kind of work it out in the end. I would just say it's kind of an E-tier relationship. I feel like it would take them a really long time to come back from that. But next up, in terms of S-tier relationships, we got Darza and Veldre from Lucht. Like, these two, they may not have a perfect relationship, but you know what? They're really trying. Both of them are basically willing to lay down their lives for the other. Veldre's pregnant, so they were at least getting along. I mean, these two, they had a plan. They were pirates, they were trying to make their way in a war-torn world, but sadly, they don't ever get to see that through. At least Veldre does get to carry on in both of their names if you end up sparing her in Lucht, so at least there's that. Okay. Next up here, next A-tier relationship. That's going to be the relationship between Warren and Bridges. This man knows about every bridge in the continent. He is ready to let you know how to cross water like an absolute pro. He's never lacking for that advice. I mean, we're gonna have to discuss his past a little bit later. Maybe there's a little bit more to that, but yeah, no, the man knows his bridges. He knows some curvy architecture, and he knows how to appreciate it. So that's a solid relationship right there. It's literally built on stone, so can't go much better than that. All right. Now, that said, we do have to talk about the rest of the Dad Squad from OB64, and this is going to be our next, well, they're going to be a D tier, because we got to talk about the Dad Squad and their relationship with the Geneva Conventions. See, the thing is, they would not get along. It's just a relationship that would not work. The nice thing for them, it's not 1912 yet. They haven't come about yet. The Geneva Conventions have at least hundreds of years before they're actually put together, so at least the Dad Squad has some plausible deniability for the things that they did. But there it is. Okay, next we gotta talk about the relationship between Eustace and God. I feel like that's probably a B-tier relationship. She does potentially get up to some shady stuff in March of the Black Queen. I mean, she's an angel going to war on people's behalf, which, according to the lore of the series, is something they should not be doing, so I'm sure that put at least a strain on their relationship. However, she must have found some fantastic ways of negotiating through it, because by the end of it, she's promoted to head angel. Stuff's just worked out great for them, and, you know, I really can't say much is wrong there. Okay. Then we have our next S-tier relationship here. Got to talk about Hector and his wife, Moldova. So these two, once again, they're a couple that's absolutely looking out for each other all game. They will try to support each other every time they can, and tragically, they can never quite keep it together. I mean, you're partially involved in the fact that you literally kill them both every single route, you monster, but you know, they're a beautiful relationship to have there all the same. Not to mention, she's clearly trying to give him a view in that portrait, and, well, that thing was so iconic that they decided to turn every necromancer into the game, into that particular thing. Okay, next, so for C tier, I feel like we're lacking in C tier a little bit. We gotta talk about the relationship between Matsuno and game balance. So, every time that he's involved in a game, he seems to always want to go for the story first, actually try to balance it out afterwards. For better or worse, this leads to some interesting scenarios. I will say it probably worked best in something like Vagrant Story, where, you know, your main character is meant to basically be a demigod, absolute badass, but for the rest of them, it's sometimes a little bit questionable why, for example, a simple archer that just came off of a loss to a bunch of wizards and skeletons suddenly seems to hit harder than a knight with a warhammer. Now, I will say, for what it's worth, it's a C tier because all of those weird balance issues and whatever else, they were all made in good intentions. I will make a video later, just in terms of the interesting circular logic that happens with a lot of the balance of the stuff that he's been involved in particular. Because through interviews and other stuff, I feel like there's just a general understanding of what they were going for. Like, for example, with archers being overpowered and stuff like that, it has to be noted, a lot of that was for the purpose of referencing how history actually functioned. They have mentioned in the past that it was for the purpose of letting people know, hey, the English absolutely dominated the French multiple times just due to their longbows. Or, for example, you have things like the weird layout of different spells in the PSP remake that, well, a lot of them were made to try and function like multiple different classes from previous games. So I'll be covering more of that later. But just know that they did it with the best of intentions. They may not have the most solid relationship with game balance, but dang it, they tried. Okay, so next we're going to talk about some rocky relationships here in the E tier. They might say that, you know, Oz and Ozma, they get along great. They've been, you know, they're through everything. They're by each other's sides. No matter how many times she sees them commit war crimes or needlessly torture people, she seems to always be there. However, it should be noted, as soon as she realizes that there's an alternative, she's out of there. Truth be told, not many people want to deal with Oz. The guy seems to get results if the results are to terrify people, but aside from that, nobody seems to really want to deal with his crap whatsoever. Which actually brings us to our next S tier, and that would be Ozma and Haberem. So, by the way, If you've never checked out, it's Lou. If you've never checked out Lou's Twitter, they occasionally show up on the subreddit. They've got some pretty good good artwork for the Ogre series, so go ahead and give that a bit of a look. But yeah, these two, as soon as they realize that they're both still alive, I mean, they're ready to go right back at it. They will literally go back to Lotus together to try to take the entire country down themselves. She defects without a second thought, and it's beautiful, I gotta say. So good stuff there. Alright, now we gotta have another F-tier relationship here, and I feel like that would be the relationship between Orson and Richter in Knight of Lotus. Now, they are colleagues, they do seem to get along, I mean, they do talk to each other and whatever else. I kind of feel like Richter's trying to get Orson killed at every turn, though. Whenever you try to go down either the A or B route, he seems to always send him to his almost certain doom, forgetting that he's an archer. He's terrible. He can't do very much, so why would you ever send him by himself? For example, if you go down the B route, he'll send him to go fight you head on. Again, he's an archer. He's got a thunderbow with him. That's nice, but he will die. That's certain. He hasn't promoted himself into anything other than an archer. Really, Richter should know better. He is their commander, after all. He knows. He's been through some stuff. He's sending an archer to go deal with a guy who's got a snapdragon. That is not going to go well. I mean, if you go down the A route, though, he sends him single-handedly to go fight dragons, the thing that hard counters him more than anything. So yeah, I personally feel they must have a terrible relationship. Richter is easily trying to get him killed at every turn. Alright, now we have one that I feel is a solid C tier, and that would be Sistina and Folkert. Now, partially, the relationship is hampered by the fact that Folkert is unfortunately biologically 80% race car. He is a very fast knight, and I'm not sure she necessarily appreciates the speed, if you know what I mean. But that said, it is a very one-sided relationship. She doesn't really seem to pay him much mind, but he does go out of his way to save her multiple times. Even tries to do the whole feeling professing thing on his deathbed if you let him die. And, well, you know, that unfortunately is a little bit too late. You can't really bring him back from the dead at that point. In the SNES original, you could theoretically then just go bring him back, and then they might just have some awkward time standing together in a very unfortunate friend zone forever, because there is no way to get these two together, well, I'm afraid. So, that is how it is. Now, there's one couple here that I feel should be an A tier if they ever did decide to get together, and that would be Denim and Canopus. They've been through all of it. They've seen each other multiple times. I'm sure Canopus has even seen Denim die several times, and he's probably curious what's up with that. He has reference to seemingly know what she's doing. He does mention that she should look like a crocodile bag in one of the DLC sections of the PSP remake. But I feel like these two would be an absolute power couple for the series. Unfortunately, you never quite see that happen, but yeah, there's definitely chemistry between those two. Alright. Next, we've got another F-tier relationship. That'd be between Queen Vernata and her Galawa. They do have a kid together, but yeah, unfortunately, she's still a little bit upset by his other relationship, and that would be with her handmaid here, which is barely better at a D tier. The guy does seem to spend the latter years of his life just basically getting laid 24/7 in the Hanging Gardens. You basically are going through his pimp palace at the end of the game. And yeah, he basically knocks her up, she gets kicked out, and then Kashua happens, and then an entire overthrow of his regime happens, so... Well, it could be argued that this guy is kind of the Zeus of Tactics Ogre. It's just, if he had just kept it in his pants, it could have saved so many issues. But unfortunately, that's just kind of how it all ended up shaking out. Alright. So next, in terms of B-tier relationships, well, we've got the relationship... Well, no, actually, this is going to be an F-tier, unfortunately. That would be between Zabos and just the sheer ability to stay alive. No matter what route you put him through, he doesn't make it. There's no way for him to possibly make it out of the story. It's never a good end for him either. He really just goes down gurgling no matter what you do. And, yeah, the poor guy can just never really get along with life itself. And it's a similar experience here with Cressida. She does go up to E tier, though, because there is at least a way to save her. her relationship with clinging on to life is very... It's just a painful experience to see, going through her side quest over and over as she repeatedly dies for seemingly no reason. I mean, her own family is killing her just for having a bad conversation. And actually, similarly on the F tier here, we have Nibith and his entire family. His wife ends up dying for war crimes, if I recall correctly. He does try to get both his daughters killed and turns his son into a zombie. I don't think they're on speaking terms anymore. So, it is how it is, unfortunately, there. Next up, though, we have a pretty good relationship here with Lubina and her sister. So their relationship is so good they can literally cause small-scale explosions wherever they go for a little bit of their life. They get together, they get along fairly well. Unfortunately, they do spend most of the game apart, so they will hang out in the B tier for now. Not to mention, they kind of look like bees, so it feels appropriate for them to be there. But yeah, they're a happy couple, and we'll go ahead and move on from there. All right, now next B tier here would be the relationship between Denim and Kashua. They tend to get on each other's bad sides every now and then, but for the most part, I feel like it pretty well averages out. You know, there's a few murder attempts back and forth, but for the most part, they do end up ruling the country together, ideally, or one or both of them die. It's kind of a toss-up. So I feel like they're a pretty reliable B tier. Alright, next, a D tier, because this occasionally wavers, but we have the relationship between Mr. Raid from OB64 and, well, the ability to not be an absolute ass at all times. He does occasionally show through that he can potentially lead, but for the most part he's just a racist dick for most of it. He does needlessly kill people pretty much constantly. I don't think the relationship will work. Maybe there's a chance, but I don't think we'll ever get to see how that all plays out. His douchery does get himself killed no matter what, so that's where he goes. Alright, next C tier. This recently moved up over the course of the last couple of years, and this is the relationship between Ogre Battle Gaiden and anyone actually giving a crap about that game. It got a translation patch. That's all that moved it up to C tier. Since then, several people have tried to play it. I don't think anyone cares still. Alright, next we have an absolute S tier, and actually, no, I feel like they're an A tier just because, well, unfortunately there's potentially other ways for them to go. And that's the beautiful relationship between Lobelia and turning into a snapdragon. So she's potentially one of the best weapons in the game. She gives everybody a morale boost. She just has to sacrifice herself into a weird Christmas tree looking thing. Okay, so next we have another absolute S tier relationship, and that's between Ronnie and Tristan. These two are just a power couple straight to the end. They end up having a kid. That kid kills both of them. But yeah, power couple to the end. They really tried. They really did their best. They got their country back. They united both their countries. And yeah, they made it to the end. They are the true S tier of this entire thing. I feel like both Ronnie and Tristan and Norn and Debonair here really just show everybody how it's done. Next A tier is the relationship between Mr. Dagon over in the Chaos route and the Aflac insurance duck. So, unfortunately, no amount of bounty hunting actually ever corrected his daughter's medical issue. However, once he discovered Aflac, he was able to get money today, and so everything worked out pretty well. Alright, next, I feel like we need a little bit of coffee here. Got a few more to go. Alright, next we have the unfortunate relationship between Sistina and a dragon. These two, unfortunately, they can't stop looking in each other's eyes for 2 seconds. She tends to let herself get eaten immediately every time you start a new run. I mean, everyone that's challenge run the Tactics Ogre remake has seen how much she absolutely loves this dragon, and particularly the insides of it. There's really nothing you can do to keep these two apart, so of course they go down to D for dragon. Next in the E tier, we've got the relationship between Sybil and her favorite assassin. They're both spies, they're both doing their job well. she does kind of just ditch him partway through, though. I feel like she really doesn't care about the guy that much. They were both on this clandestine mission together, and partway through, she just basically says, hey, I met this Alphonse guy, go. You're his bitch now. And so he goes. Alright, next in the C tier here, we have the relationship between the Farina sisters in general. Now, unfortunately, the icon here actually ended up cutting off a few of their faces. But it seems like no matter what, the sisters wind up on completely opposite sides of everything. We have Sistina over there representing the Bakram, who are just basically trying to get everything even. We have Saria over there trying to, basically trying to go on a whole headhunting spree for all the leaders of the continent. We have Olivia over there trying to run the church, and we have Sherry over there trying not to get killed in her little side quest. As well as trying to get anyone to remember to make it rain so that she can actually be recruited. Now, no matter what, they wind up on all different sides. There's very few ways that you can actually recruit all of them at once, so it feels like it's a whole challenge to get them to be together, but eventually they will agree to all come together. So, they're very solid together. However, they aren't all even necessary, since they will, well, they can all become shamans, they can all open up the temples, you really only need one. But either way, I feel like their relationship is probably pretty strained, but it's at least repairable. And then lastly, we have a B-tier relationship. I feel like one of the most awkward ones, because these two could definitely be a power couple. And we have Magnus and Humil from OB64. They would definitely be a power couple, but unfortunately they're both just too awkward to ever even talk to each other, to the point where literally hundreds of people potentially die just because these two won't talk it out. So I feel like they're a B tier, because they could really work, but unfortunately, yeah, they just end up spending half their conversations in ellipses, and it doesn't really end up going anywhere. So, that's all I have for now. Let me know what you guys think. I feel like I pretty well covered most of the relationships in the series, and I'd love to hear what you guys think going forward. Let me know what else you'd like to see, and have yourselves a good one. Take care.